I'm so glad that you stopped by because I want to share with you 25 of my DIY Christmas ornaments. I have lots of fun and inexpensive ornaments that you can make for gifts, for yourself, or even to sell at a craft fair. Most of these ornaments were made with leftovers in my craft room or supplies that can be easily obtained at the dollar store. There's something here for everyone, for the traditionalist, for the movie buff, the pet lover, and even the sports enthusiast. I hope you enjoy making these or even just watching me make them. And please be sure to let me know in the comment section below which were your favorites. For those of you that don't know me, I am Deneen, and this is Design by Deneen. I'm starting off with this clear Dollar Tree ornament. You can use a clear one or an opaque one because it's getting a coat of flat black. I'm going to be drawing a series of lines around the ornament, and to ensure that they're nice and straight, I'm using masking tape. For the first circle, I've followed the natural seam on the ornament. I'm using a gold sharpie to draw the lines, and since I've painted the ornament with spray paint, the paint won't come off when I peel the masking tape off. To make sure that all of the lines are evenly spaced, I marked the halfway point between the existing two lines and repeated the process for the next set of lines. And one more time until it looks like this. Next, I added diagonal lines going in one direction on an angle, and then the next set going in the opposite direction. And I continue to do this until the entire ornament is covered. And here's what it looks like when it's all complete. For this section anyway. For this next part, we're going to be using craft glue. You can use this tacky glue that you can find at the Dollar Tree, or Elmer's glue. The most important thing to take into account with your glue is that it's fresh and not lumpy, and also that your opening is a small enough opening that it's going to give you a very fine line. And of course, we're going to use glitter. Before you start sprinkling, make sure you have a fresh, clean sheet of paper underneath to catch all the excess glitter. And then just sprinkle away and try to get good coverage on top of the still wet glue. Once you feel like you have good enough coverage, tap off any excess without touching the glue, and then tuck it aside and let it dry overnight. It's best to let this dry overnight so you know it's good and dry before you brush off the excess glitter. Here's a larger section that I have done and have let dry. For reference, you can probably do this ornament in thirds. So I'm just using a sort of semi-stiff oil paintbrush. You could use any kind of a paintbrush just to brush off the glitter. You don't want to go super hard because you don't want to like peel away the glue, but you want to get as much of the excess glitter off as possible. I also gave the top a coat of Rustoleum gold. And the final piece is just to add a bit of gold cord through there to hang the ornament. You can also give it a coat of hairspray or some sort of fixative to ensure the glitter stays put. This first set of ornaments is made with these clear fillable ornaments. You can pick these up at Walmart, the dollar store, Michael's, and Amazon. For my projects today, I need these ornaments to be white, so I'm filling them with a mixture of 50-50 water and white acrylic paint. If you have white ornaments on hand, those would work fabulously. I'm just using what I had on hand, and this is what I had. Pour in the paint mixture, trying to get it on the edges, and then shake it around so it's all well coated. Pour the excess back into the cup, and then let dry overnight. For this project, we're using cellophane. If you don't have any on hand, a plastic bag will work just as well. Next, we're going to add alcohol inks in various colors, just dropping them on randomly. Make sure that there's enough ink for full coverage on the ornament. In this case, I didn't have quite enough, so I added a little bit more ink in another color around the outer edges. Now we wrap the ornament tightly, ensuring good coverage with the ink, and let dry overnight. Oh, and did I mention that it's a good idea to wear gloves? Once it's been dried overnight, we peel back the cellophane to reveal the fabulous patterns created on the ornament. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if this is the type of content that interests you, please consider subscribing to my channel. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any new videos. For this project, we're going to be using pouring paint. I'll have the recipe in my description box below. First, we're going to coat the ornament in a coat of white to start as our base. Next, we're going to start adding some colors. These are also the pouring paints. And then you'll notice here, I'm actually blowing them around using a straw. Apologies for the crappy shots here. It's hard to blow and film at the same time. Here, I'm adding a secondary color. I'm using gold. And same, once I get the paint on, I just use my straw and I just blow it around to create patterns. When you're happy with the way that your project looks, then we just tuck it into a piece of styrofoam. It's sitting on a popsicle stick, and leave it overnight to dry. The Floetrol that's in the paint takes quite a while to dry, so it's best to leave it overnight. Here's what it looks like after it's dried. I've also given it a coat of clear gloss. For this project, we're using the same paints, and we're just squirting them in layers into a cup. The ornament is on a popsicle stick mounted on a piece of styrofoam, and inside a pouring bucket. You're going to need something to pour into because this creates quite a lot of excess paint. And then we just pour the paint. Here's what the paint looks like when it's wet. Leave it in the bucket so it collects the drips and let it dry overnight. And here's how it looks when it's dry. And here's the finished ornament, which has been given a coat of clear gloss. For these butterfly ornaments, I've started out with these wooden butterfly shapes from the Dollar Tree. I'm also using these paper butterflies that come in assorted sizes. Pick 2 sizes that will work well with the wooden cutout. Then I gave everything a coat of Rustoleum metallic paint and primer in turquoise. Next, I used a ruler or straight edge to bend up the wings. Using hot glue, I attached both of the butterfly shapes onto the wooden cutout. And just because I'm me, I had to bedazzle it with some rhinestones. I also did it up in gold and silver just to show you what it looks like. To make the hanger, I just glued a small piece of ribbon onto the back using hot glue. This project starts with scalloped clamshells from the dollar store. I'm also using some of these satin rose petals, which are also from the dollar store. For this project, I'm using the white ones. These will form the wings of the angel. Just attach them using hot glue. To make her head, I've used a small styrofoam ball, which I've painted in a light shade of pink. Using some small pearls to create her halo. Just thread the pearls onto some beading wire. I used about 11 for this size of styrofoam ball. Loop the wire around and twist off the ends to make her small halo. Attach the halo using hot glue. Then, using hot glue, attach the styrofoam head to the body. Because I'm not happy with the broken edges of the shell, I'm going to add one more layer of rose petals for an additional layer of wings to cover up the broken portion of the shell. To make the hanger, I've attached a small piece of satin ribbon to the back using hot glue. Here's another version of the shell angel, and this is a plastic iridescent clam shell that I got from Dollar Tree around Easter time. Well, next year when you see these, stock up on them so you can make Christmas ornaments. Again, I'm using the silk rose petals, and for this version I've gone with the silver ones. Instead of a styrofoam ball, I've used a large pearl for the head on this angel. This halo is made out of very bendy gold wire. I believe I got this at Dollar Tree as a floral wire. It's very thick and it's very bendy. I just wrapped it around my finger to make a little halo, and then I pushed the two end pieces down, trimmed it off, and glued it on to the back of her head. This is my Abominable Snow Woman ornament. I started out with this ornament-shaped wood round from the dollar store, and a piece of scrap fun fur from my craft stash in white. First I traced the shape of the ornament onto the back side of the fun fur, and then cut it out using scissors. When you're cutting fun fur, be careful to not cut through the fur, so basically press the tip of the scissors against the back of the backing and cut, leaving the fur intact. I attached the fur to the wood round using hot glue. Next, I attached a couple of wiggly eyes. Push up a section of the fur right above where you're going to put your eye, and then plunk the eye in and glue it down, and this will act as a bit of an eyebrow. I'm attaching these with hot glue. Repeat for the other eye. These adhesive lips were left over from some Valentine's Day supplies. If you don't have or can't find anything similar, you can always use a piece of red or pink felt cut to shape. I decided to make a tiny nose using a small pearl, and I'm just using a bamboo skewer to hold it into place while I glue it on with hot glue. Behold my Bumble. To make this mini snowman, I started out with some small styrofoam balls. To make the nose, I'm using this tiny bamboo skewer and a little bit of orange acrylic paint. Just dip the end of the skewer into the paint to make a carrot and let dry. Cut the end off to make the carrot nose. I've applied a smiley face to this styrofoam ball just using a black sharpie. Attach the carrot nose by first poking in a pointed end of a skewer to make an opening, and then putting the flat end of the carrot nose into place. To build the body, we're going to use a piece of thin craft wire and thread it through a large-eyed needle. The one I'm using here is plastic. Make sure your wire is long enough for the snowman and additional wire to hang him with. Just poke the needle through the styrofoam ball and then thread them down the wire, and repeat for all three, and then finally for the head. To attach the wires at the bottom, I just added a small sequin, pulled the wires through, trimmed them off, and then just spread them out so they didn't pull back through. I added a couple of sequins onto the snowman as well for buttons. If you had tiny little buttons, these would work awesome as well. Cut the wire that's attached to the needle, remove the needle, and then twist the ends together. Cut off any excess loose wire, and then this will act as your hanger. This is just a square cube, wooden cube from Dollar Tree. I've painted it with silver Rustoleum metallics. And these letters, I think I got these from Walmart. It's been a long time. They've been kicking around my place for a while. But I'll link to some similar letters in the description box below. So these are just peel and stick letters. And basically here all we're doing is we're just putting somebody's name on here or a Christmas salutation. I've just used a piece of ribbon as a hanger since I'm going to be reusing this block later. But if you're doing a more permanent ornament, I would suggest screwing an eye hook into the top to lace your ribbon through. This is just a little acorn that I got from, I think it was Dollarama. I got a bag of them for, I think, $2, and they smell really cinnamony. They're very nice. Giving them a coat of Rustoleum in key lime green. It already kind of looks like a tiny Christmas tree, don't you think? Then I just chose a couple pieces of trim just from my ribbon box, and this is just a little bit of gold trim. Again, I've had this hanging around for a long time. So just attach the first end on using hot glue, and I just used a little bamboo skewer to tuck it in here and get it glued in well. Just keep going over and under the scales of the pine cone, kind of like you're putting garland on a tree. This next piece of trim is just a little piece of bling wrap, and it's basically one row of bling wrap that I cut off of a larger piece. Apply this piece the same as with the gold, only try to alternate it so it doesn't go in the same areas as the gold ones. Cut the end and secure it with hot glue. Tuck it in with your skewer. I used a piece of the gold trim to make the hanger. Just hot glue down both ends and tuck them in with your skewer. Psst, hey, do you like Christmas cone trees? Well, you are in luck because I have done up quite a few of them. I've left you a link at the end of the video. So once you're finished watching me make these DIY Christmas ornaments, go over and check out my Christmas cone trees. It's a personal invitation from me to you. This is a Christmas light bulb shaped ornament from the Dollar Tree. It's fillable. I'm going to be using this holographic washi tape. And I'm starting by adding a stripe down one side, aligning it with the top end. And then when I get to the bottom section, I use a little pair of scissors and I cut it into a point. And then I repeat the process on the opposing side. And eventually, all four sides are done. Next, I'm going to be using these leftover beaded stickers that are from the Dollar Tree bridal beads. I ran a row of the beaded stickers in between the rows of washi tape. And now I have alternating rows of holographic washi tape and bridal beads. Next I'm going to be adding these silver and pearl mixed beads. These are available at both the Dollar Tree and Dollarama. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any more. So, as life often requires us to adapt, I just filled in every second section with these beads. And you can leave it like this for a glass effect, or we can end it differently. I'm using a little Dixie cup and some Mod Podge, and I'm mixing 50-50 Mod Podge and water. Then carefully pour the mixture inside the fillable ornament. Using your hand as a stopper, shake it around and mix it around so that the entire inside of the ornament is coated with a light coating of the Mod Podge mix. Sit the ornament over a dry, empty cup so it drains before filling with glitter. After it's sufficiently drained and you have an even light coating of the Mod Podge mix, we're going to add in some iridescent glitter. Dump in the glitter. You'll probably need a fair amount. Reattach the top and give it a good shake, shake, shake. Pour back out any excess glitter and then return the lid. So here is the alternate ending to our fake vintage ornament. This one with a light coating of snow. The base for this ornament is a Dollar Tree wooden plank. I used my T-square to get a straight line, marked it, and cut it. I used my miter shears to cut it to size. To make the arms, I used a couple of popsicle sticks, and I also cut those using my miter shears. I did the first one and then used it to mark the second one so they're the same size. For our ugly sweater, I'm using this Dollar Tree crew sock. I started by cutting off the heel and toe sections and using the middle area for the sleeves. Using my pre-cut popsicle stick, I'm applying hot glue and attaching it down to the sweater. Next, I folded over the edges, trimmed it, hot glued all the edges in place, and folded everything over so that it was complete. Try to keep the pattern even on both sleeves and it'll look better. For the top rounded section, I just cut a little slice in and then I used hot glue and I pulled those pieces into place so it formed the shoulder section. To make the body of the sweater, I'm using the top section of the sock. We only need half, so I'm going to cut it in half along the heel. With this sock, I want to keep the elf centered on the sweater, so take a moment to center it and then add your hot glue and glue it down. You want to make sure that you leave that top elastic section of the sock open. Don't flip that over yet, we'll do that later. Now I'm just going to fold over all those edges and attach them down with hot glue. Now it's time to make the neck of the sweater, and we're going to do that by just folding down the corners of this elastic section, and that'll make a nice little collar. Next, we're going to assemble the sweater, so just plop those arms in behind the body of the sweater and get them so that you're happy with the placement, and attach them using hot glue. This piece is totally optional. I just didn't like the back of the sweater being as unfinished as it was, so I decided to back it with some felt. I just traced around my little sweater and then cut out the felt, and I glued it into place using hot glue. To make the hanger, I just used a leftover piece of gold cord. You could use ribbon. I used a bit of Scotch tape to hold the bottom sections together, and then I used hot glue and I attached it in between the felt backing and the wood plank. And that is such an adorable, ugly sweater. For this ornament, I'm going to use a cookie cutter. I have a lot of them. This one is in the shape of a Christmas tree. I'm using a piece of dark green felt. You can pick this up usually at the dollar store. And I'm just going to trace around the cookie cutter, but I'm flipping it over so that I'm actually tracing on the side that I don't use when I'm making cookies. So if I get any indelible ink on that, it won't get into my cookies. I traced 2 trees separately, but you could very easily just fold it over and cut 2 at once. Then cut your trees out. Apply hot glue onto one of the trees. Keep the area where you've got felt markings on the inside of your ornament. and go around with hot glue, and then you're just going to attach those two together, leaving the wide end of the tree open so that you can stuff it. I'm just using a little bit of batting, fiberfill batting, to stuff the inside of the tree. If you don't happen to have fiberfill batting, you can pick some up at the fabric store, or you can always use cotton balls. So you want to tuck in all that batting, and then we're going to just use hot glue and we're going to seal up that end. To decorate this tree, I'm using my handy dandy bling wrap. I just cut some single rows off and I trimmed them so that you didn't see any of the extra strings. And then I just cut a few of them to size, and I'm just lacing them back and forth across the tree like garland. It needed a little bit more bling, so I'm adding these iridescent snowflakes that I got with some beads from the dollar store. I just put them in place with a little bit of tacky glue, and also added a few of these little self-adhesive iridescent pearls. And of course the final step is to add a hanger, and I've used another little piece of the bling wrap so that it matches the tree. So I call this one my Santa belly ornament because it is literally just Santa's belly. This one starts out with a round, flat, clear ornament from Dollar Tree. Since these ornaments didn't come in red, I have to make it red using Holiday Red Craft paint. I didn't water this paint down, I just poured it straight into the bauble, and then I just poured it and swirled it around until it covered the whole inside. And because it took quite a bit of paint to do this, I had a little bit of excess paint left over inside, and I just put it into a funnel and drained it back into the paint container. I just leaned it up against a wall and left it for an hour or so to drain. And now it's time to decorate. This is just a piece of plain black satin ribbon. I cut a piece wide enough to go all the way around his belly, and just take the time to make sure that you get it nice and straight. Attach it using hot glue, but be sure not to use glue in the center front area where you're going to end up attaching the belt buckle. To make the belt buckle, I used a piece of thin gold ribbon, tucking the first section underneath the midway point of the belt and gluing it in place. Next, I cut the upper piece and I glued it in place, going over top of the center section. And then I did the same with the bottom section of the buckle, as well as both sides of the belt buckle, with the side pieces going over the top of the belt. To make this mini gnome, I've started out with an egg-shaped styrofoam ball and some leftover fun fur. This was a piece of fun fur that I had used previously to cut a circle out of, so I'm going to use this leftover cutout piece and I'm going to use that to make the beard. If you don't happen to have one that's cut in the shape of a circle, just cut out a triangle shape and that'll work fine. And as always, when you're cutting fur, keep the scissors pressed up to the backing and not cutting the fur, so that when you pull it apart, it looks like this and all the fur is intact. Now I just need to take that little beard and wrap it around his little egg-shaped head, and all I'm doing to attach it is to just do a line of hot glue along the edge, and he's got his beard. I'm using a pearl to make his little nose, and I'm using a bamboo skewer to place it on and a bit of hot glue. I've chosen a piece of red felt to make his hat, and I just cut out a triangle shape, measuring it to make sure that it was wide enough to go all the way around his head. So I'm just folding it right sides together here and putting a little mark at the center point so that I use that to align with his nose so that it's perfectly centered. Applying some glue right around his nose because you're going to want that hat to attach to his nose, and then I'm going to use my mark that I made on there to center that over his nose, and then I'm going to press those edges down so that they cover up the sides of his nose, and then I'm going to glue the rest. This project starts with some felt. This is brown felt I got from the dollar store in a nice big roll. I am also using a cookie cutter for this one, and again I'm tracing on the back side of the cookie cutter. Cut out 2 gingerbread people. I've glued them together everywhere except for on his head, and that is where I'll insert the stuffing. I'm using a bamboo skewer to push it down into his legs and arms. Once all of the batting is inside, I'm using my hot glue gun to glue up the opening around his head. I'm going to be using this rickrack trim, which I've had kicking around for a long time. It's actually very old, and it's reminiscent of when I actually cook gingerbread people. I give them iced hands and feet. So I'm going to add some rickrack trim to his wrists and ankles. This is puffy fabric paint, which I'm going to be using to add his eyes and mouth. It's kind of the same sort of texture and finish that you would get with icing, and my gingerbread men always have lumpy little mouths, as does this one. If I was cooking up this guy, I would be adding Smarties for his buttons, but in this case, you could use buttons, colorful buttons, or whatever you want, and I'm just going to use these pretty flower-shaped crystal beads that I have in one of my packs of beads, and those work just fine. And of course the final step is to add a hanger, and I've just gone with some gold ribbon for this, and he's done. So I'm starting this one out with a couple of wide popsicle sticks, and I'm just going to use some E6000 to glue these together, and then I'm going to let them dry overnight. So once these were all glued together and laid out flat, I did not leave them on the paper overnight because they would have just stuck to the paper. I actually, once I had them nice and flat, I just leaned them on a piece of plastic so that they were off of the paper while they were drying overnight. Just traced around a wine glass to get a curved end on my snowboard. And then I just used regular scissors to cut off the excess. As you're cutting the popsicle sticks, they'll just kind of break away. You just want to make sure that when you get to the seam that you don't break the glue seam. And there's the beginning shape of our snowboard. So I used my favorite turquoise metallic spray paint to give it what I thought looked like a good snowboard finish, but I also did the other side in my favorite blue non-spray paint, which is Folk Art Metallics. I decided as a snowboard that it needed a bit more of a fancier paint job, so I'm giving it a bit of pin striping by using just some painter's tape to make a stripe across it. So this has a coat of metallic raspberry paint. I really love this color, so I decided to make my pinstripe out of this. So it's not really a snowboard until you add some snowboarding boots. These are actually little baby shoes that I got from the wedding and baby section at Dollar Tree. They come in pink, and I think for this application, I'm going to leave them in pink. So I'm just going to attach these on using hot glue. They have a nice flat bottom, so it's easy to attach them. And although I am not a snowboarder, I'm actually a skier. I think that they're kind of a little bit, they're not completely centered. One foot's a little bit forward, so I'm going to try to attach them like that. So here's my super slick snowboard. It's even got a different color paint on the bottom, which most snowboards have, as do most skis. So this one starts with a medium-sized styrofoam ball, and I'm just inserting it onto a bamboo skewer so that I can give it a coat of holiday red paint. I went with the red paint because I'm going to be using red yarn. If you're using green yarn, you should use green paint. This is so that the white styrofoam doesn't show through. Now that my styrofoam ball is painted and the paint is dry, it's time to apply my red yarn. This is just Dollar Tree yarn. I'm just using the hole from the bamboo skewer, and I'm applying a bit of craft glue to that, and I'm using the skewer to tuck in the end of the piece of wool. And then we just wind and wind and wind until all of the styrofoam is covered. And when we get to the end, I cut that piece off, and then again I used my bamboo skewer to poke that through and fasten it down inside the styrofoam with the bamboo skewer. To make the knitting needles, I'm using these Dollar Tree picks that came with the gold beads already on the end of them. I'm using a pair of wire snippers to cut off the ends of the toothpicks, and I just cut it right down to the end, and then that's the end of my knitting needle. And do that on both of them, and they're done. And then we just poke them both through the wool, and finito. To make a hanger, I'm using a picture hanger. This is a picture hanging kit from Walmart, and I'm using the eye hook. And then we thread a piece of ribbon through for a hanger. For this awesome Wizard of Oz inspired DIY ornament, I'm using these little clear plastic shoes that come from the wedding section of the Dollar Tree. I think they're like mini glass slippers. So I took a pair of these shoes and I gave them a coat of red spray paint. I used my Dremel tool and a small drill attachment to drill a hole into the back of each of the shoes. I did a crappy job of filming this, so I can't really show you. Here is what the shoes look like with the little holes drilled in the back. The next step is they get a light coating of Mod Podge all over the outside, and then I'm going to take some red glitter, and you're going to want to do this over something to catch it. I'm using this little Dollar Tree bowl, and then you're just going to cover them all up with beautiful red glitter to make them into ruby slippers. And just keep working your way around until both shoes are completely done. The final step is to give everything a coat of Mod Podge. I'm using gloss, just so that all of your glitter stays on the shoes. This flying Pegasus is from the Dollar Tree. We only really need his wings. The initial one I actually removed, but you don't really need to do that. You can just cut them off because we're going to end up having to cut them anyway. So we're going to need a bit of an angle on the end of the wing, and I'm cutting it here using aviation snips, but you can use scissors just as easily. You just want to get a fairly good angle so that it attaches to the bauble nicely. I use the seam of the ornament as my marker for the placement of the wings. I attach them with a combination of both E6000 and hot glue. I taped the wing in place to hold it until the E6000 dried, and I left it overnight to dry. Once it's dry, you repeat it with the second wing, and once it's all dry, you can remove the tape and your ornament is ready for paint. Then we just need to attach our little piece of ribbon. I used gold, and we're ready to hang it on the tree. So this one is another felt ornament. I have a roll of white felt that I got from the dollar store. And for this one, I'm going to make a dog bone so my puppage doesn't feel left out at Christmas. To draw the shape, I'm starting out with just a normal ruler, and I'm just running down each side of the ruler to get my straight line. I marked off about 3 inches in length. I'm going to use this little Dollar Tree shot glass to mark my circles on the ends of the bone. So I'm going to use that center mark on the bottom of the cup and line it up on the corners of my rectangle, and then that way I'm going to get a symmetrical dog bone. Now I'm just going to add a second piece of felt. I'm going to cut it out, and I'll have 2 sides to my dog bone. Here's my little dog bone all cut out. I'm going to flip it so that the markings are on the inside, and then I'm going to glue the 2 sides together. So now it's all glued together, and I've left an opening along one long edge to stuff it. I'm adding a little bit of red ribbon to either end of the bone just to give it a bit of color. I'm using these iridescent letters that I picked up at Walmart a while ago to spell out my puppy's name, which is Sage. I'm adding a bit of stuffing into the ends of the bone into the 2 round sections on either end. For the center section of the bone, I'm just using these coffee stir sticks to reinforce it because I want it to be a bit stiffer. I measured off the distance between the red ribbons, and then I used my miter shears to cut them to size. I used 2 stir sticks. I ended up giving them a coat of white acrylic paint so that they didn't show through the white felt. Once they were all dry, I just tucked them in on the open side, and that keeps the ornament rigid. And then I just glued up the open edge with hot glue, and added a hanger made out of the same ribbon as on the sides of the bone, and that's it. For this ornament, I'm going to be using another one of these wooden cutout ornaments. And with this one, I'm going to use some macaroni. I'm sure this will be a blast from the past for some of you. So initially, I actually started gluing down my macaroni using hot glue, but the hot glue didn't really work. The macaroni doesn't stick to it that well. It tends to just come off. So I ended up going back and gluing it all on with E6000. And then I gave it a coat of key lime green. You're going to want to find something that's approximately the same size as your opening to trace around. And I printed out a picture of the most beautiful dog in the whole world, my puppage Sage. And then I just traced around where her face was and cut that out to put in the middle of my macaroni wreath. So the picture just fits in between the macaroni, and you can kind of just tuck it underneath. And then I just used a little bit of this Tacky craft glue to glue it down. So I just squirted some in, and then I used a paintbrush to move it around. I decided to give the hanger portion of the ornament a coat of gold, and I actually ended up doing 3 coats of gold in the end, but it's quick drying paint. This part is optional. You can leave it the way it is if you like it. I just decided in the end to add a tiny little bit of gold cord around the inside, which kind of frames the picture a little bit more. Although there is a potential that it might not look super round depending on how straight or crooked your macaroni is, but I decided to leave it in. This ornament is super easy and really fun to decorate. It's made from coffee stir sticks, and you're going to need 4 of them. And we're going to start by just making them in a cross shape on one on top of the other, and then we're going to do another X shape on top of the cross shape. So just keep piling the stir sticks on top of each other. Then I gave it a coat of paint, and I went with Rustoleum Silver Metallic. You could use whatever color you like. I pulled out this bag of beads that I have in my craft stash, and I just thought they would look really cool on this snowflake. For the ends of the stir sticks, I went with these really pretty ice blue colored flower shaped gems. I added a small rose shaped bead in the center. Next, I added some ice blue rhinestones to the alternating coffee sticks. For the alternating stir sticks, I just placed some square gems on the diagonal. I use my X-Acto blade to place them. I just add the tiniest bit of tacky glue onto the end of the blade, and that makes it easier to place the gems. And it makes such a pretty glittery snowflake for your tree. Don't forget to add your hanger, and you're done. One of the things I love about this ornament is that you could do it in any color and it would be beautiful, and there's so many gems to choose from at the dollar store. I found these mini rolls of washi tape at the Dollarama. I'm using a small, clear, fillable ornament from the Dollar Tree. I've placed a line of the tape around it once, twice, 3 times, and 4. For the next section, I've placed some of the tape on a diagonal crossing 2 of the sections so that it looks sort of like a peace sign. You could really do whatever kind of shape you wanted here. I'm just basically breaking it up so that I have sections to color in for my stained glass effect. Then I've gone in the other direction and joined up all the sections so that now I have lots of little spaces for my stained glass. Once all your tape's in place, take a moment to make sure everything's adhered nicely down, as you don't want bleeding between the sections. I'm going to be using alcohol ink in various colors. Completing one section at a time, just add a small amount of alcohol ink in one of the sections, and I'm just using a bamboo skewer to move it around and fill up all of the space in that section. Note that the edges of the tape will keep the alcohol ink in place, but you want to use it sparingly because it may have a tendency to run over the edges if you use too much. I would also suggest wearing latex gloves since alcohol inks have a tendency to stain your skin. So I'm doing 2 small sections at once, and then I'm going to let this dry until it's a good dry finish before I work on the next section. Now I'm adding a second color, and I'll be treating this section exactly the same as the previous one. You just don't want to use your bamboo stick with the other color of ink on it because the inks will mix, so you want to use a clean stick for each different color. And keep adding as many colors as you like. And if you do find that you get a little bit of over bleed onto your tape, you can just tidy it up with a piece of tissue or a Q-tip with a bit of rubbing alcohol. Last step is to give it a coat of Camar varnish, and that will help to set the ink so that it doesn't rub off or fade, and also it will make the inks a little bit more shiny when it's all done. Thank you so much for watching, and now it's time to vote. So please let me know which were your favorites in the comments section below, and to make it easier for you, I'll run through them one more time.
you.